The rear view mirror is interesting, but what is that goal sitting out there 4 years from now? Because if you don't plan for that goal that's strategic rather than the tactical execution and now, you'll never value data quality. You'll never value process improvements, and you won't have the right feedback loops to make better decisions.
Hello and welcome to the Next Level Supply Chain with GS1 US, a podcast in which we explore the mind-bending world of global supply chains, covering topics such as automation, innovation, unique identity, and more. I'm your co-host, Reid.
And I'm Liz.
And welcome to the show.
Reid and I just had an amazing conversation with John Gatrell, Chief Product and Operating Officer at Loren Data. We talked a lot about data, how it moves through the supply chain, how quality data really should be a headline and it should be a strategic asset for organizations. We talked about speed to market, managing inventory, and how having great, consistent, accurate data underlying all of that is so very important. Enjoy.
Hi, John. Welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me. Really excited to be here.
Before we jump into our conversation, just for our audience, if you wouldn't mind, just give us a little background about yourself, your company, and the work you're doing right now.
Yeah, well, I've spent most of my time in and around technology and supply chain. I started at the help desk, answering support calls, and then had the opportunity with a really early mentor to give me some new chances. I started in product management in the EDI and supply chain space. Over time, I started doing some consulting and did some workshop work around product management. That was a fun part where I got to see all kinds of, I think I saw 23 countries doing that. Then I joined Loren Data as an investor in 2016, but as an operator in 2022, I believe, if I'm recalling the dates correctly. Life gets away from me sometimes. And what we do at Loren Data is we help organizations streamline their supply chain, right? We've put together a platform that provides for global connectivity, but in a different way than the traditional vans. It's a platform that allows you to manage your own activities, integrate directly into your back office apps. And it even includes, self-service tools for data transformation, where you can build your own maps by drag and drop to ensure compliance with retailers and rapid onboarding. And we just launched a data sync solution, a catalog solution for marketplaces called Global Product Access, which is pretty timely. And I think I got to thank GS1 a lot because you all broke the ground on that, not just with the standards, but working with great vendors in the space and retailers. So I look forward to standing on the shoulders of giants and learning from y'all.
You talked about data synchronization, and I was wondering, over the years that you've been in the supply chain, what have you seen from a customer expectation perspective when you start thinking multi-channel and digital, and we've gone from, business to business with EDI, and now there's all these different attributes. What have you seen change and evolve?
Customers have gotten fussier, right? And in many ways, omni-channel is how we speak of it, but to most buyers and customers, the channel's invisible to them, right? It's a way to access information and buy a product, and they might want to buy it online. They might want to comparison shop with different marketplaces, but ultimately, as they get pickier, it's that experience. I want to see the same brand representation on one marketplace and the same price. I want to be able to make sure that if I'm doing comparison shopping, that it's the same product, right? So in many ways, data synchronization builds trust that the experience is going to be what they expect, because maybe you're like me. Every online experience I embrace and have, I compare it to the last one. Oh, my Uber experience was great. It's not the same exact thing, right? But that's how we internalize it, right? It's so the customer experience is kind of paramount. Lots of times, historically, it was, can I make my buyer or the retailer happy? Well, if it's direct to consumer, you're not just dealing with the buyer called the retailer, you're doing the end customer. And so that's something I think we've seen change. There's lack of patience around inconsistency in the buying decision process for the end consumer. They assume everything is real time, right? And accurate, right? So if you say it's in stock and I put it in my cart And 40 minutes later, I want to know if it's not in stock. Have I impacted the delivery times? Maybe the price changed. It was like Amazon Prime Day and I missed it by seven minutes, right? So data sync has gone from item information to inventory and experience drivers is how I look at it when I work with my customers. And I think about myself as a consumer. As a consumer, I just want to do research before I make a bad decision. I want to see, are there similar products on marketplaces? Which ones can get it to me Thursday versus next week? Maybe buyers and customers and consumers have become fussier.
When I asked you the question, you said fussy. I wrote down fussy. And usually I have this bad connotation around fussy, but I don't necessarily think in this context it is. It's just more aware of the choices and the information that they have.
Yeah.
And expecting that consistency and accurate information. So important.
Yeah. And so that's kind of the external view, the customer view. I think there's also an internal view, right? If you have better synchronized data, you get less tickets for where's my order, or, hey, this didn't look like the photo did. And you're not managing all those additional points of friction in that customer experience. And the more times you engage an end buyer, you're raising costs, you're eroding trust, you're really destroying the experience and maybe the brand at the end of the day.
So, John, that's exactly where I was going to go with my question, because I loved the fussiness as well. But even more so, I love that you said that the channel is invisible to the customer. And it's so true. As business folks, we're taught that you have internal and external customers. But I think that companies forget that they're their own customer at the same time. Like you just said, the accuracy of the data, it's the help desk. You started on a help desk, so you got a really good perspective of that. We have some things that we have a help desk and we meet monthly. Hey, what's happening? What's new? What's the voice of the customer, scenario that's happening? And I loved your example of Uber. Expectations are the same. Experience is a little different because of the different people, the different cars, the different locations. But it's what are my expectations and what are my parameters? So you just touched upon so much. There's so much to unpack here. But my question was, what are the biggest challenges that supply chain teams are facing today around data, accuracy, and consistency? And then what is the implications on compliance and customer satisfaction and partner satisfaction as well?
If I think about supply chains and IT, data quality is no longer a subtopic, right? It's a headline. And if you don't treat your data from introduction of that product to the point of sale as the most strategic asset you have, then you're going to make bad planning decisions. You're going to introduce risk to your partner relationships. If you're a vendor, you are also going to erode trust with the retailer that might be using you, trust with the end user. In some ways, we used to buffer with safety stock, right? But, safety stock was a way to overcome lack of real-time data, right? And so real-time information on inventory and product information was previously a desire. Now it's a default, right? You can't run your organization and your products without having that pulse of what's actually happening in the market, whether it's with your strategic retailers, your direct-to-consumer activities. I mean, many vendors are actually retailers now, thanks to e-commerce, right? Creating experience. It used to be the most important folks were the retailers, and now the most important folks are the people you do business with, no matter how many levels of abstraction you have. And so that real-time access to inventory is critical. In fact, I was working with a customer y'all might know, and their historical channels were big box stores and general merchandise kind of folks, and they deployed their own marketplace on Shopify, their own e-commerce website. And then they said, all right, I got stock there, and now I want to go to Walmart marketplace. And so they would manage inventory in kind of a batch mode. And the velocity of transactions on Walmart so superseded their historical understanding that they ended up weeks behind on shipments. I mean, it's amazing for the product people until you got to take all the calls. It's amazing for your business until you got all the extra costs and 3 stars. I think that's the most important thing around inventory right now, because real-time understanding allows you to make better decisions. And sometimes you got to pull a product and say out of stock. And that's the most fair thing you can do to a consumer and to your business.
Absolutely. And I wanted to ask you too, how does real-time data sync help speed to market? Talk to us a little bit about like maybe the old ways and the new ways.
Well, it used to be, you'd have a big meeting, you'd create a bill of materials, you'd go through some sort of, product council, make sure everything's perfect. And you got weeks of internal wrangling, right? But now you can release a product or a version of that product, and it can be online in minutes or days, not weeks or months, because of internal stage gates. These sort of phase-based approaches to launching products are gone, right? It's iterative. I'm a product guy, so I often think in agile development, but I also think in agile operations, right? So real-time availability of product information just accelerates that speed to market. If I have a new version, all right, now I got to take care of the old stuff we have in stock. I can do some promotional stuff on that. I can actually make better business decisions on promotions as I launch new products and manage legacy products as well. That's how I would look at it for speed to market, but there's also speed to trust. How can I create with every shopping cart, with every buyer, with every retailer, trust that this product information is correct? And a single version of the truth of what's the dimensions of the product. Hey, I went to Walmart and it said it was 4 pounds. And I went to Target and Amazon and it said it was 3.5 pounds. What's different there? Is it really the same product? Is it a different packaging? And so that right there erodes trust with the end user. And so I think real-time deployment of product information directly from the back office gives you that opportunity to go faster.
I had that exact situation last night. No lie. I was looking for a specialty product. It's just a little tool bag, but it needs to be specific dimensions to fit into a specific spot of a motorcycle. And I was searching online. I said, I need a bag that's 7 inches by 2 inches by 2 inches. And I would get everything. And I had one product and it says 7 inches by 2 inches. And I'm like, great, this is perfect. And I go into the product description and it says 8.26 inches by 3.1 inches. And I'm like, but which is which? And it was just the difference of the listing and the description. So for me, it's kind of like two different people wrote it. I see it all the time. So what are we doing as an industry to improve data synchronization and visibility and order accuracy for our customers?
One thing you just told me is it surfaces problems immediately for the consumer. Right now, I've got to make a thoughtful decision. Right now, maybe I got to dig into the reviews and I've got to understand how other people feel about this product. So it does kind of change that buying behavior. It creates a reticence to just trust the data if it's not synchronized. And then we start relying on the wisdom of the crowds, which directionally is typically okay. But
is it a real crowd? Is it an AI crowd? Is it a fictitious crowd?
That's an end user issue. But for an internal organization, it's how do you strategically plan to make better decisions, right? And reviews help with that. It creates this feedback loop, right? So real-time product information all the way from introduction to transaction to shipment to the feedback loop at the point of sale after they receive it allows you to be informed and maybe make a better business decision in real time rather than looking at last month's POS data, rather than going to my executive dashboard. And I'm not saying I don't like my executive dashboard, but it's kind of coarse grained, right? And as a product person, as a brand, as a category manager, coarse grained summary data doesn't really help. You need item level to drive that velocity. Because in some ways, in retailers are real estate managers, right? A shelf. And then we're virtual real estate managers on marketplaces. And so I don't know if I fully answered it, but ultimately it's about efficiency. Ultimately, it's about across systems having the same view from not just the product, but how many I have and how many are leaving the business today.
This episode is brought to you by AccuGraphics. who specializes in same-day barcode labels and EPS barcode artwork. And LS Speedia, a global leader in supply chain intelligence, with its OneScan suite setting the standard for DSCSA compliance. Thank you to our partners for making this episode possible. If you're interested in becoming or working with a GS1 US solution partner, please visit the link in the episode description.
We've been doing this podcast for a few years now, Liz, and you've always said data quality is important to you and near dear to your heart. I just want to confess that I have finally been converted. I'm like, yeah, data quality, but oh my gosh. And even John said it earlier. If you do it right, your customers are happier, your brand is stronger, and your efficiencies go through the roof with your partners internally, externally, everywhere. I always thought it was details, smeeshtails, like potato. But it does. It really, really matters.
So why then do you have companies not care about data quality?
Do they not care? Or
do they not
they just
know?
don't understand the benefits?
Do they not know?
Right?
Right.
They don't have the experience.
I'm a newco. My product is flying off the shelf. I'm just doing enough to ship orders, right? So it requires a level of maturity in your systems and processes to truly appreciate good data, because it's an investment, right? And it's not an investment that has an immediate return. And it's not just, I'm going to do it in one spot of my business. It's the totality of your business. And that's where it becomes kind of, I don't know, do I really have the stomach to have an 18-month project? Do I really have the ROI, right? And so they have to experience an amount of pain, a channel that drops them, a horrible quarter of one star, you suck, right? And so until they feel that pain, it's aspirational. It's not, in many organizations' mind, the baseline. And it should be the baseline in this multi-channel reality where I want to order online and pick it up in the store, when I want to show up to the curb and get what I got in real time.
I think you're so spot on, John. We're just human beings, and the old age saying it applies here. The teacher shows up when the student's ready to learn. The teacher's been there every day. It's just, when are they ready to learn? Like, where does the pain hit the most? We see tons of startup companies that are successful despite themselves, but then when they get to the critical spot, then it's really what's going to happen. And we see startups that come out and we're like, wow, they have great mentors or good founders because they're planning for the scale that's coming in 3 years, not in 3 days or 3 weeks or 3 months.
Yeah, when I joined, we've seen explosive growth, like 30+% for multiple years. And one of the reasons I was brought in is to look at our processes, look at our systems, to take a feedback loop, to figure out how to prioritize so we can drive continued growth without the friction and the problems of customer churn. I mean, we've got, effectively zero customer churn, but we thought about how to service them from the day we touched them as a sales opportunity to when we onboarded them in every support call. And you know what? If you leave our business, we're still going to spend time to learn why. And so scale, in some ways, and product data, it's not just pain. I'm going to change it a little bit. It's curiosity. What's really going on in my business? And am I empowered to ask questions that might drive change? And the two most dangerous things I've seen are, we did it before and it didn't work. We've always done it this way. The rear view mirror is interesting, but what is that goal sitting out there 4 years from now? Because if you don't plan for that goal that's strategic rather than the tactical execution and now, you'll never value data quality. You'll never value process improvements, and you won't have the right feedback loops to make better decisions.
I would love to hear your perspective on what's ahead. What changes, what trends do you see from a data strategy perspective the companies should be thinking about?
Well, I've already talked about that. It's got to go from an afterthought to a headline. But I think the one thing that's going to change is it's going to move from an IT activity to a business focus, right? That the end users, I don't care if you're a buyer sitting in the ERP or someone sitting on the dock with the WMS. I mean, ultimately, the goal is to empower end users to make business decisions. And that's where we're going, right? We don't need IT in the middle. They're an enabler, not an operational tool, right? The operational tool is how we make better decisions as leaders in our organizations. So the trends are around how do I get better visibility in every checkpoint in that order fulfillment and processing. And that's going to say, all right, there's some technology parts that need to be enabled. APIs, webhooks, proactive communications with your customers when there's exceptions. As much as I don't like an Amazon order being delayed, I kind of like them telling me it's going to be delayed. I mean, I'm never going to cancel the order. I mean, typically they tell you it's going to be there on Friday with the delay, and they do it on Thursday, which is the best, under promise and over deliver, or whatever that saying is. But you can't do that without a strategic view of your data, from your MDN solution to how it integrates into your ERP and your processes. And then, I guess I got to say AI at some point, right?
No,
you can't train AI on bad data.
You
right?
can. People do.
I mean, yeah, I understand that. But I mean, the effectiveness of that agent, of that machine learning algorithm for exception handling or anomaly detection, if you don't have the right data quality throughout every aspect of your business, you're just throwing money at tech.
Yeah, so you are. It ebbs and flows. There's always good things. There's, changes and stuff. But you said it before. It has to become operational.
I want to say one other thing. And now that you said that, standards help. GS1 helps. Rich data helps. Because if we got a common language, then we have a better way to interact. And we can speak on the same page. So, yeah, you can talk about product information, you can talk about legacy EDI standards, you can talk about vertical standards, size, color, style, whatever. But we got to have that common way to interact, not just at the widget, but how we look at that widget. How many cubes is going to take to transport this? What's the compliance requirements for tariffs? And you can do it without GS1. I'm just going to put it out there. You made my life a whole lot easier in my career.
We appreciate that. I do want to lean in here a little bit. Our culture today is moving to more individuals. And we need societies to come together. We need partners to come together. We need industries to come together so that we can create that rising tide for all of us. We can all have different boats. We can all do different things. We can all enjoy the water the way we want to as individuals, but you still need societal norms. You need community norms. So you need co-opetition. That's how the internet kind of came about in the industry. Yes, understand is built by the military for communication, all that stuff. But you still need people to come together and say, hey, I agree. That's a good standard. We're going to use this. Let's all use it. And now we can all communicate. We still need to come together as communities. And I think we're losing some of that. Like, I want my competitive advantage and to stay away. You can still do that and use standards.
Yeah. And, standards, I guess, are from whence we deviate in many businesses, but we got to at least agree we're, talking English or French, right? Yeah, there might be some very interesting nomenclature you might use in one region that would be different, but maybe that is your appeal. You said differentiation. I think in distinctive competencies. And what I mean by that, there are things you do well as an organization, but there's things you do well that the market values and believes that makes you different. The problem I have maybe with a lot of organizations is we obsess on the competitor rather than how can we compete. And we do that with better data. We do that with better execution. We do that with a better experience. And once you realize there's things that make you different, and it might not be your product, it might be your promise to fulfill. It might be that shows up on your porch the next morning or the same day. The most innovative thing I think in my life was Amazon Prime. It's changed my shopping behavior. I mean, I do a little bit of price check, but I don't start at Google, where's this product? I go to Amazon and say, is this product here and does it meet my requirements? It's my default, and then there's an exception that I might use after that. And they've created a level of loyalty in me, mainly because they make it easy, not necessarily cheap. I'm pretty sure some of the things I buy on Amazon are more expensive, but they're going to have it here this afternoon. And I didn't need to leave my house and go to Best Buy for a new iPhone cable.
Well, we are coming up on the end. This has been just a delightful conversation. I really appreciate your perspectives, and we're going to have to talk a little bit more. But we do have to wrap this up, so we're going to get into our last two questions of the day. And Liz, I will go first.
Okay.
John, what is your favorite technology that you're using right now? Something either personally or professionally, but just something that like this tech is just, you can't live without it right now.
So maybe it's a little bit profession and personal. I've been loving vibe coding with my kids. We've been playing around with Lovable. It's forcing me to kind of go back to my roots because vibe coding's interesting, but it's not actually perfect. Right? So I work with Blake and Elena and, we try to, all right, what problem are we going to solve with this? And then we sit down and they do the queries. I'm like, well, that looks like a security area. And so it's a shared experience. So technology to me, I don't care if it's vibe coding or looking at Netflix or, pick something. If it makes your life better in that moment, it is something you should value. And lately, it's vibe coding with my kids.
That's really cool. What is something new that you hope to learn in the near future?
I think I want to learn how to listen better. As I don't know, get older in my career, as I get more experience, I get kind of stuck in a rut. I call it kind of your preferential bias, right? You have this series of successes and you do it how you've always done it because in the past you succeeded. But as markets change, I work this new generation of folks showing up to software companies, they are so intelligent. They have a level of empathy. They have a level of integrity that I got to prick up my ears a little bit and pay attention because there's a lot to learn and listen. And sometimes you get caught in the mire of day firefighting and activities that you don't hit the pause button and chat. And remote work is making that harder. I mean, I work at home and we're a 100% remote organization. I used to say when remote work wasn't that common, it's not our fault you don't work at headquarters. You need to do the work to make the connections. And now where everybody's remote, if you don't take that action to develop that relationship and trust, that you don't be fully transparent, you take input, we erode that trust every day we don't talk. And so I spend a lot of time trying to listen and talk to folks. And I'm trying to get better at that. I don't know if I am, but it's a thought. It's on top of my head. Every time I work with my team, when I talk to my manager, Todd, people got things to say. Spend the time to stop talking and start listening.
Well, listen, John, thank you so much for being with us today. Really appreciate the time that you shared and the knowledge. And we're thankful for the partnership. We appreciate you being here.
All right. Well, if anything you need, just reach out. Thank you for this chat.
Thank you for joining the Next Level Supply Chain with GS1 US. If you enjoyed today's show, you can subscribe to our feed or explore more great episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to share and follow us on social media. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.